and it's supposed to go to qualifying gun safety organizations, and the law does not elaborate on what constitutes gun safety. So my idea is
California is taxing your right to self-defense, and that's coming up. They already decided it. They already voted on it, and now they're going to enact it. You know, Chief Justice John Marshall famously said that the power to tax involves the power to destroy. California is destroying your right to self-defense by taxing it. That was AB 28. AB is Assembly Bill. Assembly Bill 28 became law last year, and it is going into effect July 1st, 2024, which is right around the corner. Now, this is an 11% excise tax on guns, ammo, and precursor parts.
What's a precursor part?
Good question. Hey, Sam, what's a precursor
Sam, what's
part?
a precursor part?
block of aluminum.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Go into it thoroughly. Like what when you walks into the store, what's he going to see?
I got to get where he's coming from. Anything and everything.
Well, no, seriously, yeah. When you're writing a law like this, you have to specify what constitutes precursor part. Is piano wire a precursor part because you can use it to make springs? Those are fire control components.
Mm-hmm.
The legislators really have to be specific when they're talking about this stuff, and it highlights something I always say, that the people writing the laws don't understand what they're legislating.
No, heaven to be no. They never do their research.
So, and what they did is, they had to decide, when does raw material become a firearm? And what they decided was, okay, if it's 80% there, then it's a firearm.
And this dates back to, 2006? And that's federal.
Yeah, I think it was even older than that, but all right, that sounds about right. So 2000, I believe your memory for dates on gun stuff more than I trust my own.
Better than yours.
So they basically said, all right, boom, it's got to be 80% there. Then and then they kind of defined it. So they would come out with raw material that was less than 80%. It was whatever, 79% there. But you still had to do, if it's 79% or even 80% of a gun, you still have to do significant work on it for it to become a firearm.
Yeah, to make it shoot.
So they'd sell these kits, an 80% kit, that still had to be drilled out, right? And milled out. Like, if you bought an 80% kit, what would you typically have to do with it?
Well, depending on
for an AR, let's say.
Okay, if it's an AR, then it will be an aluminum forging in the shape of an AR-15 lower receiver or AR-10, if you swing that way. But the fire control pocket will not be milled out, and the holes for the pins will not be drilled out. So you'll need, ideally, a milling machine, or if you're really good with a drill press and don't mind if it looks super ugly when you're done, a drill press and a set of jigs to completely mill out that fire control pocket, remove the material, and then drill those holes with the correct spacing and tolerance in the right locations for it to work.
I can't do any of that. I don't know what a jig is, nor can I do a jig. That's not something. It's not. You know what I mean?
Adult stencil.
Yeah, it's not something.
No, I've seen you with springs. No, you're totally incapable.
Have you ever done an 80% build?
I've not. My
What?
bane. No.
You haven't done something?
No. My bane right now is just getting those darn roll pins tapped in properly. That's the level of.
Do you have roll pin starter punches?
I do.
The cup tip ones?
I do.
And even those don't help?
Not in my hands.
See,
I don't know what to tell you.
The only one I'd even begin to trust, with an 80% is Sam here. He seems to absolutely know what he's talking about.
I've never done one. I'm not a machinist.
I was
And
going to
he's
say,
never
you
done
ever
one.
built one?
So it's not like it's easy. All right. So what they're going to do starting July 1st is every gun you buy, all the ammo you purchase, all the precursor parts that you decide to buy it's going to be an 11% tax.
Okay. Why 11?
There's no rhyme or reason for 11. They pulled 11 out of a hat.
No, they pulled it out somewhere else.
But
does that? Doesn't that draw a question? Like why? Why say 10%? 20%?
The important part is, what are they going to do with that 11%?
Didn't they say they were going to do kid safe anti-gun kid programs or something like that?
That takes care of
You know what this tax has done, though, is gun shops are exploding. People are wanting to rush in to buy all the things now before the tax goes into play.
Yeah, and then
so it's really encouraged people to go out. They've been on the fence and they're buying.
Well, here's the punchline with the tax. I did a little bit of looking into this a couple months ago when this was big in the news. Well, I guess it's still big in the news. and it's supposed to go to qualifying gun safety organizations, and the law does not elaborate on what constitutes gun safety. So my idea is, what would it take for SDCGO to qualify for grants
Or not
from
me.
that
Yeah.
11% tax?
Or our
There you go.
501c3, Not Me California. I
It
think
is a nonprofit.
absolutely
Teach
a
gun
gun
safety.
safety.
Wow, that's a great idea.
It's pretty bad though. So that 11%. So basically, what they're doing is they're taking 11% from gun owners, and they're going to redistribute it to 501c3s that are anti-gun. That's essentially what they're going to do.
Well, how much are they already charging on a gun?
Well, zero. This is a whole new. I mean,
No,
there's
no,
a
no, no.
sales.
There's just the regular sales tax.
There's a federal tax
Just
that
a-
goes
yeah, just a
to
regular-
conservation efforts. It's, if I recall correctly, and someone's going to get mad because I'll get this wrong, 10% on
Okay.
long guns, 5% on handguns, though those might be reversed.
Okay. Yeah. So and then now they're adding another 11 on top of that.
That's why, and here's the inside baseball, that's why a lot of online retailers sell a complete upper and a complete lower, or a complete Glock slide assembly and a complete Glock frame, because those are not complete firearms.
Right.
So-
It's not. It doesn't use the legal definition of firearm.
So
It's
everybody's
So
trying to see who could out.
we were just talking about Mara Elliott. Listen to this. This comes from
she
September
just call
18th, 2023. Dear Governor Newsom, this is a letter written by Mara Elliott to Governor Newsom. As the city attorney of San Diego, I am pleased to express our support for AB 28, which will secure dedicated and sustained funding for life-saving violence intervention initiatives and related gun violence prevention, education, and research purposes through a modest surtax on firearm industry profits. They're not taxing firearm industry profits. They're taxing you and me, when
Yeah.
we go to purchase this. If they were, I don't even know. I mean, if they were taxing profits, they'd be taxing the firearm industry. They're not. This is an additional tax on top. Gun violence is a public health, safety, and equity crisis. It's an equity crisis. Since the start of the pandemic, our nation has seen record-setting gun and ammunition sales. That's a good thing. Alongside record nationwide increases in shootings, homicides, and related traumas.
which have come back down, by the way.
This has been a time of, I know people, her constituents. Anyway, this has been a time of record profits for some and brutal pain and loss for many others. The gun violence crisis also imposes enormous burdens on those who are not direct victims. Experts of the National Institute of Justice have noted that the, quote, youth living in inner cities show a higher prevalence of post-traumatic stress disorder than soldiers in our wartime military. In addition to its brutal human toll, gun violence causes enormous economic harm and imposes enormous fiscal burdens on state and local governments and taxpayers. A report from the National Institute of Criminal Justice Reform in 2020 determined that each firearm homicide in Stockton, California, cost taxpayers at least $2.5 million in direct government costs, such as medical, law enforcement, court expenses, and lost tax revenue. Non-fatal shootings with a simple suspect were also estimated to directly cost taxpayers nearly $1 million on average. So they're basically saying, look, bad people are doing bad things, so we're going to implement a tax on good people going through the proper channels.
2
They're
minutes.
sane, they're trained, they're law-abiding, but we're going to punish them with, in essence, what is a poll tax. Now, Democrats have a long history of embracing poll taxes. Back in the South, when they didn't want blacks to vote, they put a tax on voting. That's what a poll tax is. And it was deemed, no, you can't tax a right in that way. You can't do that. It's clearly to discourage people from voting, and this is exactly what that is. Yeah. There's no difference. And for them to take that money, and she's saying, hey, it costs governments money. Okay, well, you're not even giving it back to the governments. You're taking that money and you're giving it to your 501c3s that put out anti-gun messages. That's where this is all going. It's purely it's not solving a problem. It's purely going to propaganda.
It would be interesting if Not Me applied for some of this money and just to see.
See if we get it.
I mean,
What's the
really?
worst that could happen?
1 minute.
I know. Well, maybe we'll apply for it.
And it could be a story that could go out to all of the and say, look, this is what Not Me does. This is what this tax was for, and now they won't give it to us.
That's true. So what you got to know, though, is July 1st, 11% tax. Everything you buy in a gun store, essentially, is going to be 11% more money. They're going to
buy now.
So buy now. They're going to take that money. They're going to give it to people that are trying to take your rights away so they can spread their anti-gun message. The question is always, well, when's the lawsuit going to happen? There are so many lawsuits. They're in the hopper. I got to tell you, anybody out there would be happy to file it. All we need from you is 10 years and $1 million. So if you have $1 million in 10 years, hand it on over. We're happy to. I mean, there are so many there are lawsuits that are CCW related, that are assault weapons related, that are pistol, handgun roster related. There are so many
if they
lawsuits
can wear
right now.
you down.
Well, they're never going to wear us down.
But that's their goal.
But this is why I need everybody out there, if you haven't already, even if you're already a member, you need to join groups like Firearms Policy Coalition, like Second Amendment Foundation, like San Diego County Gun Owners, Orange County Gun Owners, Inland Empire Gun Owners. Make a donation to Not Me, California. The other side is determined and funded, and we need to be equally as determined and equally funded in order to win this fight. So,
Otherwise, we don't want to hear from you.
I'd like to throw out something really quickly. You mentioned get out and buy them now. January 1, we now have to have a 30-day gross wait between firearm backgrounds that we run.
Right.
Know that you can buy, and most shops will do this, let you buy as many as you want right now. You can only dross them, though, every 30 days. But you can get out and buy a whole year's worth of guns if you want to. So don't think that because you can only dross one in 30, you can only buy one right now.
So buy
them now,
dross
buy
later.
whatever you want,
And if you go
dross
to
them.
Discount Gun Mart,
Well, I'll do your paperwork for you. There you go. Yep. Yeah. So get them now.
There you go.
all complaints,
That's it.
1-800-ALICIA, 1-800-ALICIA.
That's it.
If you get arrested, we'll get you out. Not to worry.
So what haven't we talked about yet?
Food.
That's right. Guess what I'm about to talk about?
I'm getting ready to, too.
The reason so many people are putting pickles in Dr. Pepper
I
right
was
now.
reading about that the other day.
You and
Apparently Sonic is
yeah,
responsible
Sonic's
for this.
doing it. Yeah.
And there's a sour green drink hack taking over Sonic, and fans of the mixed beverage have helped it go viral online, calling it the perfect sip.
And
I got to try it. I haven't tried it yet.
have you had it, Sam?
No.
Are you going to try it?
Alicia?
No, I'm not going to try it.
You don't like pickles?
I do.
Do you like Dr. Pepper?
I don't like combining sweet and sour.
Yeah, I don't know. What about you, Alicia?
That's very specific.
I think it's bizarre,
Because you'll eat it.
but I'll try it.
Oh, see, I told
Yeah.
you.
I got to
She'll eat
figure
No,
out
I'm in.
I got to figure out like the mixture, like how many pickles.
ratio.
it.
are
No,
in a
you go in and just tell them, and they throw them in. You don't.
I've seen people put whiskey or bourbon in, like, so they'll drain the pickle juice, and then they'll put the whiskey in the pickle jar with the pickles. You leave it for about a week. It's supposed to be really good.
Really.
Coke and peanuts.
I've heard. Well, yeah,
It's
that's a
southern
very
thing.
southern thing.
Coke and peanuts?
Yeah. Yeah, you know about that, right?
Well, you're talking to the wrong guy when it comes
You
to
know,
a
if
palate.
if you go work out real hard and you're kind of like you're like you're winded and you're
what?
if you work out real hard, like maybe you go run a half a marathon or something like that. Did you know that pickle juice is actually a very good sports drink?
Yes.
Is it really?
It's got electrolytes.
It's full of electrolytes.
got
There
what
you
plants
go.
crave.
Feel great.
So is coconut water and tastes better.
Hey, I'm taking 2 mason jars to Bon Giovanni's tonight and have them fill them up, 2 of them with minestrone soup,
Okay.
because my wife won't leave me alone.
Oh, really?
So I'm getting not 1 jar, but 2.
Of minestrone.
Wonder what that's going to cost me.
Well, an arm and a leg, probably.
Probably so.
Okay, so Alicia, what were you just
what are
saying
you talking
about an
about? Yeah,
M16?
stripping-
Well, first time.
So, you guys, a couple segments ago, you brought up the M16.
Yes.
And it kind of got me thinking. I was just kind of thinking, it made me laugh a little bit. I didn't fire my first firearm until after I was married. So I was probably, 19 or so.
Yeah.
My
Is
my
that
first
related?
firearm. It is.
Was it a cause and effect?
Well, no. So, but I
What did
thought
you
it was
do?
funny. I thought, the very first time I ever laid a hand on a firearm, however, was before I was 17. I had enlisted in the Army, and I was in the delayed entry program. And and it's one of those things to where when you enlist prior to being 18, they kind of just they keep you in the element, and they meet with you once a week. At least we did. And I learned how to sit there, and I learned how to field strip an M16. And then, not only did I learn it, but then they would time us and we would compete, and we had to be good and we had to be fast. Right. And I just thought that was kind of very funny. I never even fired anything, but I knew how to take it apart.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So how long till you actually fired a gun?
For about 2 years after that.
2 years after that?
Yeah.
But you
How long
learned
were
how
you
to
in the
field
military?
strip, huh?
I didn't. So you want to get into that story?
Sure.
No. So I was supposed to ship out July 3rd for basic.
Oh.
And so I ended up just a few days prior deciding to change my mind. A little bit of a love story. I decided to stay here and get married instead.
No.
So
And the rest is
I signed my
history.
paperwork and got out.
The rest is history.
There you go.
So, talk a little bit more about Sam. Talk about all the stuff that you do for Leatherneck and all the writing you do. Is that, is it a passion project, or is this something you want to make your career? Or talk a little bit about it.
I can't see myself doing it as the only thing I do for the rest of my life. That has to be flying, but I do enjoy it. And
Yeah, he's a pilot. Did you know that?
I know. You flew out here.
Well, I don't think he flew that plane.
And boy, are my arms tired.
Yeah.
See, but so it's something you like. It's an outlet.
I do enjoy it, and my style when I write for Leatherneck is a bit more academic than in the blog posts. The blog posts are short form. They're a little bit lighter and fluffier. Not to say that there isn't good, serious information in there.
Which is the most fun?
And they're fun in different ways.
Gotcha.
Which is more fun for an athlete, playing basketball or swimming? They're just different.
Swimming. Oh, I don't know. Swimming's pretty fun.
Yeah, swimming is pretty.
You
good.
wear less clothes. So, how do you research? Like when you're you find a topic.
Google.
What's the best way to research?
No, primary sources, and the tricky part can be where to find primary sources. There's a whole research project for how do I even begin the research, and that in itself can be a challenge.
And
But
how do you know the research is the real deal?
primary sources.
Yeah, primary source.
How do you fight bias? Your own personal bias.
Well, my method for working on, and it's different whether it's a history article like one of my This Is My Rifle pieces, or if it's I did one that was more current interest about the Office of Naval Research, and for that one that was easy. I just interviewed people, and that was really cool. But for a history piece, all the people who were there are long since dead, and all they left behind are notes. And so the way I fight bias is my process is become as much of an expert as I can on that subject matter and then tell the story. I see myself as a storyteller. And so there are multiple sides to each story, and a part of what I try to do is I try to dispel myths, urban legends that there may be out there, and boy, are there a lot of them in the gun world, as I'm sure you guys know.
There really are. What is one of the other things I learned is I've heard for years that they issued an M16 in Vietnam and they all jammed because they didn't clean them. They said, "Oh, you're never going to have to clean this gun," and therefore they all jammed. Therefore they failed. And that's what I've always heard.
Well, that's part of
story.
it. That
That's
is
part of it. But what's another big part? I've never heard anything like this.
The other part of it that this is still somewhat well known, but I think a little bit less so, is that part of the issues came from a change in gunpowder. The original powder that they had been using in testing was from DuPont Chemical. It was an extruded stick-type powder, IMR 4475. DuPont had stopped making that powder at some point, and Army Ordnance was looking for a replacement that would be as close as possible, that would bring the velocity back up to spec, because they were chronoing the rounds at about 3,150 feet per second, and they wanted to get them back up to 3,250, which was the spec. And they wanted a little bit more weather resistance, so they opted for WC846 from Olin Winchester. It was a ball-type powder that had a calcium carbonate coating on each individual grain of powder. And that coating, that's chalk for lay people. And as that burned off, that would accumulate in the gas tubes and clog them up. So no matter how much cleaning soldiers and Marines in the field might have been able to do, they would not have been able to remedy that.
And so the M16 was designed with a 20-inch barrel. It had very specific specs.
It is a very elegant design, very minimalistic in the way it's engineered, but the way it's balanced, the way that whole system is balanced, anytime you change one thing, you have to change something else. You have to turn another knob.
So if you the length of the gas tube, the length of the barrel, both.
So that's why we have people messing around with like different buffer weights, adjustable gas keys, adjustable this and that and whatever, because as you shorten the barrel, shorten the gas system, You mess around with dwell time, with pressure curves, with all these different variables that have to be accounted for in another part of the system.
Okay, so other than weight, what was wrong with the M14?
It had a handful of issues. The biggest one, really, apart from weight, as you mentioned, the biggest one really was the wood in the stock. It would swell when exposed to the humid jungle climate of Vietnam.
Because the 16 uses either polymers.
It uses a polymer stock. So as that wood swelled, it would place uneven pressure on the barrel. It would mess up the bedding, and you'd get this wandering zero effect. So it wasn't like, oh, when this is exposed to a jungle climate, this particular rifle shoots 3 inches high and one to the left at 100 yards. No, it would just change around random. As the barrel heated up, it would change as well.
Wherever it was.
2 minutes.
Wow.
So if you had to pick, if a general came to you and said, "Hey, we're thinking about outfitting our infantry with a modern version of an AR, an AK, an FAL, or a SCAR," what would you say?
Well, and disclaimer, I am not in the military. I have never been shot at in any capacity. I have never been in combat, so my advice is worth what you paid for it. That being said, the AR platform has had the most development work put into it by the U.S. military, by foreign militaries, by Colt and Colt Canada, formerly Dymaco, and so it is, as I see it, the most mature platform.
And you particularly, you like the 416, didn't you say you had a lot of good things to say about the 416?
Yeah, I've talked to some of the people who worked on the M27 program for the Marine Corps, trying not to tip my hand too much here, but the 416 has some interesting design elements, and it's very well made. The barrel in particular is second to none in terms of durability.
No, there you go. A 416 is it's like a piston, like an AK is extremely reliable because it has a piston system, but it's an AR, so I'm oversimplifying, but it's kind of the best of both worlds.
It's pretty much a short stroke gas piston system retrofitted onto the AR platform.
And that's resolved a lot of the field problems.
The idea was to make it reliable with short barrel lengths.
Right.
So there you go. Look at this guy.
Yeah, they never let us use the 16.
Why not? You in particular? Or
He was a tank crewman.
I don't blame him.
Well, even in basic, they would bring it. They were bringing it out and showing it to us and everything, but they wouldn't let us shoot it. So they had to shoot the tank.
What sparked your what sparked your interest in guns?
A book that you gave me when I was a lot younger, American
right.
Gun, as I recall. By
Oh, that's
Chris
right.
Kyle. Yeah.
Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.